Okay, so you don't feel there's any need for any
I mean, if you want to further, I mean, there's never anything wrong with being, in law, sometimes being redundant is not a problem as long as you don't contradict yourself. So, I mean, if there's a desire to have further clarification of that, we can make sure we can put in that provision, let me get back to it, that, at no such time will lessors have any right to any improvement on the property. I mean, that's a simple sentence that we could add. But I do think that we're probably adequately covered given the large P definitional terms.
Okay,
So
I'll
it's kind of
refer to the rest
discretion.
of the report. I voiced my concerns, and that's all I have in that document.
Mr. Dawes pointed something out on page 7. There's the California Department of Forestry is attached beyond the CSD's name. That might have got lost in the red line shuffle. So we'll have to strike that.
But I don't think, President Secretary, I don't think there's any problem with adding that language just to make sure there is no ambiguity. It doesn't hurt the contract at all.
Okay. I'll defer to the other board members.
I understand what you're saying in the language, but I understand President's point too. And sometimes for us lay people, that kind of stuff gets lost, and then people are thinking maybe they have an ability that they. I know it could avoid some.
I 100% agree. I think there is no, we could only make the contract better by adding additional terms. Again, I think it's fine the way that it is, but that doesn't mean that it can't be, additional language can't be added to improve it. So I think the President's suggestion is helpful, and so they'll have no.
And not needed to overly top it though either. So.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a little clarification maybe.
Anybody else?
I agree, if it just to help it out, clarify.
Yeah, I just think that it makes it so that people don't have to go and check other sections for definitional references. So.
Mr. Calvin?
Yep, that's fine.
Mr. Roney?
No comment.
Okay. So. Okay, so Mr. White, you'll be drafting the sentence to add to that.
Yeah, it'd be the sentence I stated earlier.
Okay.
So I'm happy to make sure Scott's got everything. So
I'm lost in the weeds, so I'm going to defer to you.
I know what I did. It's fine. So we're just asking to be approved with those amendments.
So we want to fix the dates. We want to clarify that the payment would be 5 business days. And then we want to add a sentence in the termination to indicate that the lessor would have no right to any tenant improvements.
And then I strike the California
Strike the California Department of Forestry from.
Once again, I'm going to, if you don't mind.
Yes. So I would motion to approve as amended.
I'll second the motion with the amendments.
Or do we need a motion? Yes.
It's under $5,000 an annual transaction. So
The contractual obligation, I should have the motion on it.
Let's check with public too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any public comment on this item? No.
Okay,
Just
so.
re-motion.
Re-motion, please.
I rescind my previous motion. I will now motion to approve as amended.
Yeah, I will second the new motion.
Okay, let's have a vote then. Director Palafox.
I would hold that for 1 second as a comment. This needs to go back to Mr. Keller because he is the lessor.
Okay.
And he might not agree to these terms.
So what I tell you to do is I'd probably have him approve it so that you don't have to, so then if he agrees with it, then you don't have to come back to the board. Otherwise, you have to come back to the board for sure.
I'm just saying, if we amend it and this is what he's approved to, agreed to go with, then I'm just throwing it out there.
If we approve it in the amended form, and he agrees, you can go forward. If not, you've got to bring it back to the board.
Okay.
If he doesn't agree, then it's got to come back anyway.
Right, because one party didn't agree with it.
Right.
Yeah.
But if we're agreeing as amended, and he agrees, you're off and running.
And if he doesn't agree to it, it's, all we're doing is clarifying the language.
I'm just putting it out there.
Okay, okay,
We kicked this can down the block long enough.
okay, got it.
So I have a motion from Director Sangster, second by Calvins. You guys ready?
Yes.
Director Palafox,
Yes.
Director Gregory,
Yes.
Director Calvins,
Yes.
Director Roney,
yes,
President Sangster.
Yes.
Passes 5-0, no absence. Working with council.
No, not working with council with the specific amendments.
Yeah, on the specific one, yeah. It's just we all won't remember, we're gonna remember.
The council.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 8, discussion on status of Machado Wastewater Treatment Facility Expansion and Aeration Upgrade Project. Let's do that.
So the usual, we're at our average daily is 144,901 gallons per day, which is 72% of hydraulic capacity. And our max day is 177,127 gallons, which is 89% of our hydraulic capacity, which is slightly down from last month on the maximum. However, it's about the same on the average. We've been working very diligently with USDA to try to conform our engineering report to what they want to maximize our benefit from USDA. We have our prior regulator at the water board had retired a couple months ago. Just the other day, we were able to make contact with our new regulator, so we'll be meeting with them on the 1st to bring them up to speed on our project and make sure that everything is good as far as they're concerned. I don't anticipate any problems on that side. We're nearly there with our environmental work. USDA has required us to mitigate to the 500-year floodplain, which is 2 feet higher than our current treatment plant. So we're trying to mitigate that as cheaply as possible, because as you can imagine, lifting 20 acres is expensive. So Blaine and I discussed that today, and he has direction, hopefully, to bring back a plan for me to look at. Before I mentioned about the Prop 68 and other parts of the treatment plant, they have specifically a flood mitigation grant as part of the Prop 68 grant. So we'll be pursuing that to mitigate the 500-year floodplain as part of our build-out. I'm not really hold my breath, but hope for the best. Other than that, hopefully next month we have some information regarding the environmental report, and hopefully we have something to bring to the board to start the public review of our environmental report, assuming that USDA can review it and have it back to us by then. And I think that's pretty much it.
All right, board comments or questions?
Go for it.
I guess not comment directly at you, Mr. Dodds. I guess I'm just disappointed that we're, I guess it's the price of doing business in California, but it just seems like, you know, the environmental work and all the other little bureaucratic, you know, nonsense. I mean, they want to raise the entire lot, you know, 2 feet.
Well, the recommendation to the engineer was not to raise the entire thing, but gave him what I felt would be the most prudent way to get around it. Because there really is no pressure at the top. If we have a 500-year flood and, you know, Noah's Ark comes floating down the river, then, you know, all bets are off. But if you just fill up the river to that point, you know, there's really no pressure at the top, so it doesn't have to be huge. So, because of space, there'd be a combination of probably concrete retaining wall and you know, earth and dam, that kind of thing.
And if we have a 500-year flood, half the town's going to be gone at that point.
Well,
Water.
you know, based on his analysis, only a third of it, but, you know, there's 60 homes in the river that aren't going to be happy, that's for sure. Yes, but it is very discouraging that things keep cropping up that seemingly nobody seems to have any idea about. Even the regulators don't seem to know until they bring it up, so.
So is all of Mission Meadows in the 500-year floodplain?
Actually, no.
The treatment plant's at a lower elevation than Mission Meadows?
So the streets in Mission Meadows are partially in the floodplain, in the 500-year floodplain.
Of course.
Most of the treatment plant is in the 500-year floodplain, but all the houses are slightly above that. So if you drive around there, you see everybody's kind of got a pretty steep driveway.
Elevated pad.
So they're all built up. So at some point, somebody knew about it. But apparently they didn't know when they built the treatment plant the last time. But yeah, there's a large percentage of the town that's underwater in a 500-year flood scenario, but it's not as much as you think.
You probably don't have the answer to this, since this is a historical question. The last flood that wiped out the sewer plant, would that be considered a 100-year or a 500-year flood?
Based on what I was told, that would be closer to 100-year.
Okay.
But, you know, we're in an entirely different situation. From what I've been told, the river is much more overgrown than it was then, and that changes things dramatically.
Okay.
So, you never know. The 100-year floodplain was, you know, it goes into the lower area of the treatment plant, but it's nowhere near the top.
That's why the new sewer plant was built where it was, out of the
Yeah.
100-year flood.
They got that part right.
Any other board comments or questions?
Do we have an idea how much these mitigations are going to cost? I know that's
How much
very.
and what?
How much mitigation is going to cost?
Not until they get it sort of laid out and they can figure out what the actual quantities are.
But we're not looking at the point of abandoning the sewer plant yet.
Well, that's not only an option.
I don't want to pull Morro Bay, but I just want to throw that out there.
Well, we're not going to pick it up and move it to the other side of the river trucks, if that's what you do. I think that based on what I talked about with Blaine today, I don't think it's going to cost as much as some of the initial designs from the beginning were going to cost. It is obviously going to add a little bit of cost to it, but I think with what we talked about today, it won't be as bad as I'm probably anticipating.
Okay.
Okay, is there any public comment on this item?
Yeah, I've heard of the 100-year floodplain. I ain't never heard of the 500-year. Where'd this come from?
That's our federal government friends.
Yeah, right. All them freaking socialists that you guys voted in.
Well, you know, bring, not to.
But no, I got a question. Okay, now, is the sewer, the sludge ponds and everything, is that in the 100-year floodplain?
So,
I guess what I'm trying to ask is, you gonna move all the sludge ponds and everything, or what?
So basically, the requirement from USDA, essentially the federal government, is that all things that are essential to the operation of that treatment plant have to be out of the 500-year floodplain. If you're looking at the treatment plant as it sits today, everything at that lower elevation is in the 100-year floodplain. Essentially, the 500-year floodplain licks right at the top of what's on the higher elevation, and if it were about 2 feet taller, it wouldn't come over the top. So all the processes that we're proposing are all at the higher elevation. They just need to be elevated a little bit more. The only thing that's really not able to be at that elevation is the lift station, or the headworks and the lift station, which will just have to be protected by a wall. There is no intent of moving the percolation ponds where the drying bed is right now. That dirt would be moved anyway, and repurposed. That area would be repurposed for the fire training because it would have no real use to the treatment plant. So we're not moving any of that because that's not essential. The plant can operate without it. Bear in mind that if we have a 5-year flood, we're not going to have any power, so we're going to run on the generator until we run out of gas, I guess. Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and hopefully the water board doesn't listen to these meetings, but you have to play along in order to get the money, and right now the feds have more cards than we do. So.
Well, what's the, of the whole sludge ponds, your building and everything, it has to be at the 500, what's the square footage of that?
The
Total square footage of your sludge ponds and
so
your whole treatment plant and everything?
If you look at the plant today, there's 4 main ponds. That's our treatment process. Those have to be protected, and the new treatment process trains have to be protected. Those are only, I believe the footprint of those is like 150 by 150. The biggest cost is protecting those the ponds that are there because we have to go all the way around. The building, the office building that would be easily protected by raising it up or building a wall around the back of it. The treatment processes that are being installed or would be installed can easily be built up to the correct elevation. And like I said, the headworks and the lift station is going to have a wall to protect it as part of it anyway, so it would just have to be a little bit taller. So really the cost probably won't be that much in addition to what we already anticipated, but all of those ponds have to be protected because that's part of, there's no real way around protecting them.
Right.
With a wall?
Either a wall or like an earthen dike or dam or something that kind of followed it around. We're not going to build a 16-foot high dirt mound.
You got 20 acres, you got plenty of dirt to push up.
Yeah, we're not short on dirt, that's for sure. Just a matter of moving it to the right spot.
Okay, any other public comment? No. Okay, is there any final board comment?
Yes. I only have 2 comments, and like always, I'll wait if anyone else has any comments.
My only comment is thank you to our firefighters and the Firefighters Association for all of the fuel mitigation and cleanup that have really made a difference in the appearance of the community. So thank you all very much.
That's very much.
We hope to do a little bit more.
I'm going to throw a board member under the bus. Did you report what happened? Your good news, Mr. California? Oh, they know? Oh, good. I want to make sure.
That was before.
Oh, good.
We covered that before you go right in.
Thank you. Before you got here.
All us girls run.
Yeah, everyone wants to know. Okay.
No comment.
So at our last meeting that we met at, we discussed April 8th as our next strategic planning meeting. It looks like I need to request that actually has to be pushed off to May. I need to meet with Mr. Roberson. I have some ideas on funding mechanisms. I want to just work on that behind the scenes, so we're very productive during the strategic planning meeting. And then I will also do the personal necessity. I won't be in town on the 8th. So I was looking at possibly May. I know that we have two things that we're going to take up the time. One is we want to make sure that we address fire. Fire has not been addressed. We want to make sure that the fire issues and what they're looking at gets a full and fair amount of time. And then after that, go over funding mechanisms for all of our departments. So make sure that all the departments get covered as we look forward into the new year. So we're not, wasting time in the strategic planning meetings, and we're just organized and moving forward.
Yeah.
What are you proposing?
Do you want to propose a date, like the 6th or 13th?
Yeah. Can you change the calendar so we can see it, Bobby?
Yes, Dan.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Roberson, how many hours do you need? An hour and a half, 2 hours for fire? How many? I want to make sure we have.
Well, it could be an hour, it could be 2 hours, just depends on how much feedback there is and
Okay.
and how much conversation is generated by it, but.
So what were you thinking, guys?
I was going to propose, and I was going to throw this out there because I've already been working on a draft outline for a recommendation that I'm going to have sent to you, Mr. Roberson, because of the technicalities. I was going to propose actually, please forgive me, 2 meetings. That will be the 6th and the 13th. Those are both Thursdays. Because we want to make sure we touch over all the issues clearly.
Oh, April or May?
May.
Oh, okay.
May, yes.
May 6th would be the fire one?
Uh-huh. And the 13th would be funding mechanisms for everything. That would also, we meet with you, we talk about it, and then get everything ready for that.
Okay, let me look here.
Do you have anything you'd like to further cover so we can cover all the Thursdays in May?
No.
No, please.
Thank you for thinking about me on the 20th. Thank you.
So is this at 6?
I was going to propose that at 6 o'clock.
So 2-hour meetings both days, 6 to 8 o'clock on the 6th and the 13th.
Yes, and possibly, depending on when I meet with Mr. Roberson, it might be 8:30 and 13th, because we want to make sure we discuss. I don't want any questions or leave anything hanging on that one. I want to make sure that we wrap this up and that everyone's ready. I
haven't heard what you had to say yet, so it's hard to judge the time, but I know an hour and a half would probably suffice for what I need to say.
Okay.
Okay, so 6th fire at 6 o'clock, 13th for funding,
Yes.
and just try to keep the paperwork light, please.
Yes, I was actually working on an outline, which would be pretty much, the 13th would be in a slideshow format with bullet points, everything is not a massive 200-page document.
Thank you.
And I would make sure it gets all to staff before any of that sees light of day.
6 work for you, Rob?
Does that work for everybody? Is that fine, I'm proposing that? I want
They'll
to.
be here tomorrow, but their leg is far away, I know.
I know. That's also why I wanted to set it up for May.
Okay.
Anybody have any issues with those dates? No. Mr. Roney? You good with the 6th and the 13th?
Shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
Okay. I'll try to come up with something for the 20th.
No. I'm all full up on that day.
Busy.
It's my busy day.
Okay, any other board comment?
So this is still the 27th, and we still have our regular meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. We need to notice we're going back into closed session.
We do, we're going to announce that we're going back into closed session. We will be adjourning the kind of open session.
Okay.
So 9:09 or 9:10? Or you guys need a recess to go
Do we need a recess? Maybe a 5-minute recess might be good for anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
get back here at 9?
9:15?
Perfect.
Uh-huh.
Okay. 9:09. 5:15. I can do some housekeeping. Yeah.
I want to do that after. Unfortunately,
Yeah, you can, yeah, you can go.
they do.
Where'd you get that from?
Yeah, you can just go. I can just see a little bit.
We're gonna do it, I don't know if she did.
Sulfur, the sulfur's getting